Hey everyone, welcome to Lesson 11 of the Image Gallery project. In this lesson, we will be taking a look at a concept called responsive web design. So let's make sure our workflow is set up. You have one tab open to the GitHub repository for the project, another tab open to our Cloud9 IDE or any integrated development environment you're using. And let's take a look at where we left off. All right, I have two files open in my editor, index.html and styles.css. That is all we're going to use, so I am going to give myself a little bit more real estate here. I'm going to slide that editor over the File Explorer column on the left-hand side, and let's hit Preview. And then I'm going to slide that preview so that it kind of models a phone or mobile design. Remember, that was the approach here. We set out to design this project with HTML and CSS for a mobile phone only. And that is what we have here. There is one slight change I want to make. If you take a look at the card text class here, the site and the paragraph reference for the author, that looks a little tight. So we have 9 image cards here, but I'd like to add a little padding on there. I want to go back and use the concept of box model. And if you go back to our CSS, this is the card or the class that we want to add padding to, card text. Now, card text is on all 9 of the actual image cards. So in order to make that style take effect, this is the benefit of having an external style file. Click on that style.css, go down and find our card text. There's our padding. If I just change it from 1 to 2, and remember that's the equivalent of about 20 pixels because we set the HTML adjustment earlier. And now that should add a little room. If I hit refresh, it adds the padding, notice down below, that we desired. So it just gives a little bit of a comfortable look to the card text, but notice it took effect on all 9 of our cards with just one simple adjustment. So that's the benefit of CSS. It affects the whole project depending on how you target it, and we targeted this for the card text. Now let's go over to this pop out. So I'm on the preview here. Upper right hand corner, the 2 boxes there is pop out into the new window. And let's take a look at what the project looks like in a full screen. Well, a couple of things jump out. Number 1, the header is a little small. And number 2, the image is gigantic. And there is only one image per row. So if you remember, HTML blocks take up the entire viewport. And all we did was we set 40 pixels on the left and the right for margin so we could see that. And the image was set to 100% of the image card container. And that's what's happening. So this is by design, but it was only for mobile. And there's our 100% for the image, and there's our 40. But it doesn't work when we go larger than mobile. And that's what today is about, responsive web design. So let's head on over to our W3 Schools friends there and scroll down to CSS. Let's click on Learn CSS, and over on the left hand side we're going to go all the way down, even past advanced. You are cruising through this, and we want to look at the responsive piece. So let's look at responsive web design, the introduction. What is it? It makes your web page look good on all devices. It uses only HTML and CSS, and it gives a diagram of how elements adjust from desktop, tablet to phone. So let's take a look at viewport, the next one down. And in the past, early web design, viewports were just a desktop. It was just a computer screen. Now viewports are watches, phones, all the way up to massive television screens and jumbotrons, quite honestly. So what HTML5 has done, it's introduced a method to let web designers take control of the viewport using a meta tag. Now remember, meta tags are inside of the HTML file in the head document, not body. Meta tags or metadata, is important data about the project, but it's not visible on the screen. So they're asking us to include this viewport element on all web pages. And property is name is viewport, content property is the width is going to equal device width, and the scaling is 1. So this is actually saying the width of the page will follow the screen width of the device. So it will adjust based on how the user is viewing your website. Initial scale is 1. That sets the initial zoom level when the page is first loaded. So we want this incorporated in our file. So do we need to copy it and bring it over? Let's take a look. Let's go back to our index.html. I'm going to close out of the preview momentarily, and let's head up all the way to the top, and here is our head tag. Take a look at the children, specifically line 5. There it is. We already have it. So if you recall, when we first started the project, we had a blank file for HTML, and we just hit Shift 1, which was basically the exclamation mark, and then tab. We used the exclamation mark snippet, and that populated a template HTML structure with some pieces of the head and a blank body, and the meta viewport information was there for us. That's how important it is. So let's head on back to our W3 schools. So we have that taken care of. Let's head down to something called media queries. So now, media queries is the mechanism or trick in which we will adjust styling when the screen gets bigger than a mobile screen. So let's think about how this works. Media queries is a CSS technique introduced in CSS 3, which is what we're using. It uses the @media rule, and it allows for a block of CSS properties to take effect only when a certain condition is true. In the example here, this body background color will be light blue only when the condition takes effect, and that condition is in the parentheses. When the viewer is looking at anything up to 600 pixels. So below 600 pixels, background color is light blue. If it goes to 601, it's exceeded that max width, background color will no longer be light blue. It will not read that content. So we want just the opposite effect, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the media query here to take effect. So let's head on over to our CSS file and hit enter, and let's type in @media. And before we hit curly brackets, we want to put in our condition, and the condition is going to be not max width but minimum width, and we're going to set this at 768 pixels, which is kind of a standard for mobile, and in future lessons we'll talk about where we got that. Let's open curly brackets now, and inside of those brackets, anything that we have related to CSS properties and values and rules for selectors inside of these brackets will take effect when we're viewing a screen in excess of 768 pixels. So right off the bat, first thing we saw was let's fix the header. And take a look on top, the header's font size was 1.1 rem for mobile. It's about 11 pixels, kind of small, but again, that was for mobile. So let's head on down here and let's type in font size, and let's change that to 1.6 rem, and let's bring it up to 16 pixels basically. Okay, that should fix the header altogether. Now let's save that. Let's go back to our big screen, and our goal here is for the image cards, rather than have one take up the entire piece here, we want to control each card as a child and maybe send 3 across horizontally. So we're viewing multiple cards at once, and our goal will be to get about 3 across on a big screen. So that means we have to go back to our index.html and take a look at all of our image cards. And those image cards now, our goal here is to make them children. So take a look here. If all 9 image cards are children, what is the parent tag? And if you said the section, you are correct. So now we want to set up a class attribute for that section. So remember, class attributes are on the open tag. Put your cursor inside of that section tag, type in class equals, and we're going to name this gallery. And the naming applies to kind of what its purpose is. Now, a little trick here, I'm going to put the gallery that I typed here into the clipboard, so I just Control-C that, because when I go over to style and target that in the CSS file, I'll get the spelling right. I've made that mistake already. Okay, so let's see here. That section now will be the gallery, and that's the parent container, and all 9 image cards are the children. If this is sounding somewhat familiar, we set up the parent of the image card itself, and all of the children of the image card, the image itself, the site, and the paragraph, were controlled as children. And that's when we used Flexbox. So let's take a look on the image card. The image card, we displayed flex, and we set that column to be, we set the flex direction to be column, and that we want to keep. We want that parent-child relationship to stay the same because we want the image on top and we want the site and the paragraph reference for the author down below. But now we're going to apply that same logic where the image card takes on the child's position. So head on over to your README file, and we want to open up our friend Complete Guide to Flexbox CSS Tricks again, and let's refresh our memory with Flexbox. So, properties of the parent. Now this flex container is going to be our gallery. And the gallery we want to go left and right because we want 3 across. So we're going to set flex direction to rows. So let's do that right now. Head on down, and remember this is only in the media query condition. So dot gallery, and that's in my clipboard. And we want display to be flex for this parent. And then we want flex direction to be row. And now let's head on back to CSS Tricks again. And once we have that set up, the main axis now is still justify content, but now we're justifying content left to right. So we're going to use this space evenly feature down here that will space the children nice and evenly across the viewport. So let's head on back here. And we want justified content. Space evenly. And now we got one more thing to look at. Take a look at this. Again, this is how we're setting properties of the parent and how they impact the children. Look at flex wrap. This kind of looks like what we want. We want to go 3 across. But when we run out of room, we want the next 3 cards or the next cards to go on another line. And that is setting the container to flex wrap as the property and the value to be wrapped. So let's do that. The flex wrap property we want to set to wrap. And now we only have one other piece to do here. So let's go back to the image across the desktop, and we want to get to a point where we have 3 across. Right now this width is setting 100%. Let's go back to our W3 Schools. One final look here. The next one down is responsive web design for images. We're going to kind of steal this concept. This is what we've done already. We set the image width to be 100% of the container and height to be auto, and that allows the property, the image will be responsive to scale up and down to the parent container. Well, we don't want that to change, but we want that same logic to apply to the card itself, the entire card, including image, the site, and the paragraph. And we could target that because we already have the image card class. So one final piece here, we want to put max width. And instead of 100% for the card, we want this to be, let's say, about 28%. You can adjust this accordingly. I'm going to come down here and just delete some spacing here first. But now what this is saying is, as we go across, let me click Control S here. As we go across the screen, we'll have 28% of the card here, then some spacing, another 28 and another 28, and we will probably run out of room, and the fourth one will wrap down. So I think that is it. Not a lot of adjustments. So media queries are very handy to have. Let's hit save here. Let's bring up our indexed.html save here. And I'm going to preview this first to make sure that we still have our mobile setting. Notice nothing changed here. But when we come up to the bigger screen, now when I refresh, the changes took place because we exceeded 768 pixels, so the media queries took effect. One final piece here, when you have the X in your browser, to the left of that there's those two squares. Just click on that, and that allows you to, if you just grab the side of the window, now we could literally see the media query in effect as we go. Here we are below 768 pixels across, so we're in the mobile environment right now. But as we look at a bigger view, as we get to a bigger view, now we're probably at a tablet. So the tablet view can't fit 3 on. That's that 28% width. But then when we go a little farther to the desktop, we've got 3. So we have now, with a very quick couple of lines here, using the media query condition min width 768, we have affected the design so that it is viewable in a friendly manner on all screens. That is responsive web design. All right, congratulations. We are now complete with the project as far as design goes. Mobile is set, responsive is set. We've got one more lesson to do, and that is a pretty cool one because we're going to take this project. We're going to use our friends at GitHub, take advantage of the fact that they will allow us, or we will be able to publish this project live on the internet so that you could go direct to a URL, put it in your phone, put it on your watch, whatever device you're looking at, on a Jumbotron, whatever, and view the project itself. So that's the next lesson. So my students, make sure you're being graded on this. At the end of any work stoppage or workflow lesson ending, wherever you're stopping, make sure you are pushing your work from the local AWS IDE environment up to GitHub. Those are the 4 commands. The Git commands you want to run are git status, add, commit, and push. If you forgot what those are, don't worry. Go back to the utility video from our within the project on how to push your work from Cloud9 IDE up to GitHub. Again, congrats on completing the project. One more to go to publish this. We'll see you in the next one, everyone.